Hello again, everybody. Lance Smith here, and welcome to episode 283 of the Bible Difficulties and Answers podcast. Last week, we finished Book 2 of C.S. Lewis's Mere Christianity. We saw that a new kind of life, the Christ life, is available to us through Christ, and that now is the time to choose. Today, we begin Book 3, Christian Behavior. Lewis shifts from explaining what Christians believe to showing us what those beliefs are supposed to look like in everyday life. He opens chapter 1, the three parts of morality, with a story. A schoolboy was asked what he thought God was like. He answered that God seemed to be the sort of person who is always snooping around to see if anyone is enjoying himself and then trying to stop it. Lewis says that is exactly the idea many people still have about morality. Something that interferes, something that stops you from having a good time. Lewis offers a completely different picture. He compares us to a machine, not because people are machines, but because every machine is designed to operate a certain way. Moral rules are God's instructions for how human beings were made to function. That's why they sometimes seem to get in the way of what feels natural. Like a driving instructor correcting a new driver, God isn't trying to spoil our fun. He's teaching us how life works best. Some people prefer to talk about moral ideals and idealism rather than rules and obedience. Lewis warns that this language is dangerous. It can make morality sound like a private taste, something a few unusually high-minded people choose for themselves, while the rest of us are free to aim lower. Lewis says morality isn't a matter of personal taste. It is a necessary ideal prescribed for all of us by the very nature of the human machine, just as perfect gear changing is described by the nature of cars. Now, don't get hung up on the word machine. Lewis isn't saying people are mechanical or emotionless. He's simply illustrating that just as a car works best when it's operated according to its design, human beings flourish when we live according to the design of our Creator. Lewis then explains that there are two main ways we go wrong. First, individuals drift apart from one another or collide with one another by cheating, bullying, or harming each other. Second, things go wrong inside the individual when the different parts of a person, desires, faculties, priorities, get out of order and start fighting each other. He uses two helpful pictures. Think of humanity as a fleet of ships sailing in formation. For the voyage to succeed, two things are necessary. The ships must not collide with one another, and each individual ship must be seaworthy with its engines in good order. You cannot have one without the other. You cannot have perfectly maintained ships that still crash into each other, or ships that sail politely together while one is slowly sinking. Neither accomplishes the mission. Or think of a band playing a piece of music. Each instrument must be in tune. Each player must come in at the right moment. But Lewis points out that we have still left something out. We have not yet asked where the fleet is trying to go, or what piece of music the band is supposed to be playing. Even if every ship avoids collisions and every instrument is perfectly in tune, the whole enterprise fails if the fleet was meant for New York and ends up in Calcutta, or Kolkata as it's known today. Or if the band was hired to play dance music and instead plays nothing but funeral marches. Lewis says morality has three dimensions. First, fair play and harmony between individuals. Second, getting our own hearts and lives in order. And third, the ultimate purpose of our lives, what God created us for. Modern people, Lewis observes, nearly always focus on the first of these and forget the other two. When newspapers talk about Christian moral standards, they usually mean kindness and fair play between nations, classes, and individuals. That is important, but it's only the first part. If we stop there, we are only deceiving ourselves. You cannot make men good by law, and without good men, you cannot have a good society. All the social and economic systems in the world will fail if the people inside them remain greedy, cowardly, ill-tempered, and self-conceited. That is why we must also deal with morality inside the individual. Laws can restrain evil, but they can't change the human heart. That's a work only God can do. And we cannot stop even there. Lewis reminds us what we believe about reality inevitably shapes how we live. If I am only a temporary tenant of my mind and body and not the owner, then I have duties I would not have if I simply belonged to myself. Christianity also asserts that every individual human being is going to live forever. That changes everything. Small vices that might not look very serious in a 70-year lifespan can become absolute hell over 1,000,000 years. And if individuals are immortal, then the individual is incomparably more important than any state or civilization that lasts only a few centuries. Lewis ends the chapter by saying that for the rest of the book, he is going to assume the Christian point of view and look at the whole picture as it will be if Christianity is true. Here's what I want you to carry with you this week from chapter 1 of book 3. God's moral rules aren't arbitrary restrictions. They're instructions for how we were designed to live. Next, morality has 3 dimensions: how we treat one another, what is going on inside each of us, and the ultimate purpose for which we were made. Also, focusing only on social fairness while ignoring the condition of the individual heart is not enough. And finally, if Christianity is true, every individual is of everlasting importance, far more important than any nation or civilization. Next Sunday, we continue in Book 3 as Lewis begins to unpack what Christian morality actually looks like in practice. Until then, here's my simple invitation. Come as you are, stand in the hall with us, and keep asking the honest questions. Thank you for being here as we begin this new section of the book. I'm looking forward to walking through it with you. As always, my hope is that Lewis helps us think more clearly, but even more importantly, that he drives us back to the truth of God's Word, which remains our final authority. You can email me at BibleDifficultiesAndAnswers@gmail.com, join the conversation on Facebook, and if you'd like to support the podcast, head over to buymeacoffee.com/Lance Smith. All episodes are archived at BibleDifficultiesAndAnswers.podbean.com. I'm Lance Smith, wishing you good health, good study, and God's richest blessings. So long, everybody.